Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rihanna if you're new here. I like to talk all things mental and physical health, as well as cooking, family planning, and travel. So today I have a video that is more centered around mental health. Today I want to talk about my backstory and how did I get to where I am today. This video is very scary for me to actually film because it means that I'm getting really vulnerable. And the thing is I feel like maybe part of like what happens to you in life and what you experience, maybe part of that is so that you can help other people. And there's a quote actually from My Mind and Me by Selena Gomez, that song, where she says, if somebody sees me like this, then they won't feel alone now. And I feel like that song just really hits me hard because it makes me go, I could help somebody by being vulnerable. And that's actually what led me to starting this channel. And so I think in order to kind of talk about my mental health and like what has helped me with my struggles, I feel like it's really helpful to also be vulnerable and share like how did I get to that point. And so I might need to do this video in multiple parts just because it is so emotional and it is like a lot for me to go over. So I think I am potentially going to do that in multiple parts. So don't really know where to start actually. So I will just start by, saying that I grew up in not always the best environment. I was a pretty happy kid. I really liked school. School was kind of like an escape for me. It made me feel good to do well in school. It made me feel like that was what I was good at, and it was something I could control. And I couldn't really control my day-to-day environment at home, so I feel like school was really helpful for me. It really got me through, I think, hard times. And I grew up with my first 12 years of life. I grew up with my mom and my dad and my brother. And we moved around a lot to different places. And we lived in Fernley, Nevada, and that was kind of a big changing point for my life. It started in Fernley, I would say. Over the course of my life, like my first 12 years, we would see my parents argue a lot, and we would kind of see them go at it a little bit. And so, it wasn't necessarily, a super healthy environment the first 12 years. But I would say that once I hit like around 12, that was kind of like when everything started really changing. And so my mom and my dad, they decided to divorce and go their separate ways due to some, irreconcilable differences. And I, didn't really agree with my mom during the whole divorce process. I would say me and my brother really took my dad's side in everything. But my dad was just very manipulative, and he, would encourage us to basically, be against my mom and to not have a relationship with her, and kind of, he was basically pushing us to be closer as like a family, me and my brother and my dad, and kind of convincing us that, like, we were this loyal family that stuck by each other's side, and we didn't, ever leave one another, and we always had each other's backs. And, if we ever, like, were to leave one another, that would be, a bad mistake. And, so, my dad just kept reiterating to me, don't talk to your mom, or like, he would tell me, do you really want to talk to your mom after like what she did or whatever. And, so basically me and my brother were heavily manipulated and, moved with my dad to California. And, that was kind of the beginning of where my struggles came from. He, I would say, really groomed me in a sense of he, made it so that I needed to rely on him for things. He was in control of everything. He was in control of my house, my food, my life, whether or not I could hang out with my friends, whether or not I could do anything, whether or not I could have my cell phone. He was in control. And, he was my dad. And, he developed a bond with me that, he developed a bond with me over Harry Potter. He read all of the books with me, and we shared, our love for Harry Potter together. And he really grew to be like my best friend at that time when, I was against my mom. And my brother and my dad were really my best friends. And, sorry. So, I, had a lot of trust in my dad not to hurt me. We bonded over music, Harry Potter, and we just lived in a small apartment. And we didn't have a lot. We didn't come from money. We barely got by through the week. At one point, my dad lost his job. So we just didn't have money. We would go to the store going, okay, we got $40 on groceries for the week. What are we gonna get? Like, it wasn't the type of thing where we could eat whatever we wanted or drink whatever we wanted. Like, that wasn't how we lived. And that's never how I lived. Like, my whole life, it was never like that. We still had food, I can't say that we didn't eat, but, we were struggling. And, I started to get older and develop, interest in dating. And so my dad, he told me that he wanted to help me with dating. He would tell me not to tell anyone, don't tell anyone about our conversations about dating. And so that was kind of where it all started. I was a teenager, and he started sexually abusing me because he claimed that he was teaching me how to handle it whenever I would date a boy. And it grew into more than that, where he would require me to, perform these sexual acts in order to do anything, he would ground me for like the smallest thing, like, you're grounded for just a minor thing, and I would get grounded constantly, but I wasn't allowed to tell anybody that I was grounded. So I wasn't allowed to tell, my cousins or my brother or anyone. Like, it was a very bad environment where I was going to get in trouble if I told anybody what was happening to me. And so he would ground me, and then he would immediately ground me and then immediately require me to perform these sexual acts in order to get off grounded. One of the big things, he knew that I loved my cell phone so much because that was my way to communicate with my friends, and like any teenager would love their cell phone. And so he would just take away my cell phone constantly. And this would happen on a weekly basis. I was getting my cell phone taken away and then immediately getting it back after he would force me to perform these sexual acts. And so this went on for a couple of years. And I would cry about it. I would try to be as quiet as possible. I would just hope that it would end. I would pray that someday it would end. And I was so scared of telling anyone because I think that I didn't want to lose my dad. I wanted to, fix him, I guess, in a sense. Like, he kept telling me, if you keep doing this, you'll fix me. Eventually I won't do this anymore. I won't need to do this anymore. And it never became that. And, eventually I attempted to tell somebody multiple times and it never worked. But eventually I told somebody, and she called the police. And I was at he's my husband now, but I was at my boyfriend's house. He was my boyfriend at the time. I was at his house, and I got a call from my dad that I needed to come home because the police were there. And so I went home to my dad's apartment, and the police were there, and I got in the police car, and I just decided to tell the truth. And I just decided, like, this is it. I think I just felt like I can't do this anymore. I can't go on with this sexual abuse one more day. And I wanted so very badly for it to not affect my family and to not lose my loved but I just couldn't take it anymore. And I think what was really hard about all of this, well, everything was hard about it, but what was really hard was that me telling the truth was going to affect other people, like my brother and my cousins who lived with me for a long time in that apartment, and my aunt, my dad's sister, who lived with me for a long time. And I didn't want to affect other people, but I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was very scared to tell the truth, so I started out with not the whole story. I started out with kind of just a brief overview of what was happening, and then I eventually was able to tell all the details of everything that was happening over time. But I was just very intimidated and scared. And that changed my whole life, that experience. I told the truth, and a lot of people didn't believe me, from my dad's side of the family, or said they didn't believe me at the time. Or they didn't show that they believed me. And that was really painful. And I went to go live with my mom for a few months, but I was really depressed because I felt like I was living with my mom and my stepdad and my brother, and my brother didn't believe me at all. He didn't believe anything, and he kept telling me he didn't believe me, and kept telling me you have to tell the truth, and calling me horrible names and telling me that I was a bad person for lying when I did not lie. And I kept explaining that to him. I told the truth, and he just didn't believe me, and it was really causing me to be in a very dark place. And so my aunt, my mom's sister, ended up offering for me to live with her. And so I lived with my mom's sister and her daughter, who I now refer to as my sister, so you'll probably see me refer to her as my sister in these videos. But I lived with them, and it gave me a lot of hope. I was able to keep staying in I was able to go back to school into the previous school that I was at. And I was able to, because of that, I was able to go to a college in California that allowed me to pay California tuition. So if I had lived in Nevada with my mom, I would have had to pay out-of-state tuition to go to college in California. And my dream was to go to college, and I was very scared that I wasn't going to be able to go to college if I had to pay out-of-state tuition, because I had no money and I had nobody helping me with college. So my aunt was able to let me live with her and her daughter, and that made for a very positive senior year of high school for me, and late junior year and senior year of high school. I was still with my now husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time, who was very supportive and believed me. And he, went to my court hearings that I had to go to for the trial against my dad. And he, just kept telling me he believed me and reassuring me of that. And he was my best friend and still is today. So I, went through this traumatic divorce with my parents, and then I was, groomed by my father, and then sexually abused by my father, and then lived with my mom for this short period of time, and, was losing family, losing my, my brother and other members of my dad's family, and then, I moved in with my aunt and her daughter, who's now my sister, and that was a really positive experience for me. I got into therapy. I, was on top of my schoolwork. I was applying for college. I felt like I was at home. I felt like it was home for me. And that made me really happy that I had that, because I was living in such a toxic home before that I didn't feel safe, and I felt really safe with my aunt. And so that was a huge changing point for me. I went through 2 trials. One was, actually both were while I was in high school, and then, I think it finished up in my freshman year of college. Everything finished up with the trials, and my dad's sentencing finished up in my first year of college. So I went to San Jose State University with, my now husband, and I loved school, but I could just feel this sadness that I wasn't good enough. I'm not somebody worth sticking around for. I started to have these nightmares of my father's abuse, and I started to have these nightmares and these sort of flashbacks of the abuse and my family not sticking by my side. And I remember just wanting so badly, how can I get them to believe me? What can I do to get them back? And there was just nothing I could do. My brother would tell me, he would send me messages saying, that you better change this, you better tell the court that, you weren't abused, and he would tell me that I had a brain aneurysm, and, that I was a terrible person, and, all these terrible things. And I just kept telling him, I'm sorry, I told the truth. There's nothing I can do. And he never believed me. And that's really hard when you grow up with somebody who's the same blood as you and they don't believe you when you tell them somebody hurt you. And they're the same blood as you. And, you know, you grow up playing games and bonding with each other. We experienced our parents' divorce together. You know, I loved him very much. And I felt like I lost him. I felt like I lost some of these people in my life. And it just felt like I lost my family. And even though I had gained this beautiful family, this safe home with my aunt and her daughter, I still felt like I lost my family. And, so I think that was where I developed PTSD, but I didn't know it at the time. I did have suicidal thoughts in college, and kept trying to push past it, but I would have these breakdowns, panics of, you know, I'm going to lose my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. I'm going to lose my aunt. I'm going to lose my sister. I'm going to lose my mom. I'm going to lose my grandparents. And I just kept thinking that I was not good enough to be loved, and nobody would ever hold on to me. And, I'm not sure how I pushed through those thoughts the first time around. I think I distracted myself with school. I think school was a big help to me. And I think my aunt and my sister were a big help to me through getting through those times. But I think I eventually just felt a lot safer. And I think that was the key. I wasn't being triggered over and over again by anything. I was starting to feel safer. And so I eventually pushed through this period. And flash forward to